The scent of rain mingled with gasoline as the headlights of passing cars cast fleeting glimmers on the soaked pavement, revealing the worn shoes of Ella Rivers. Desperately clutching her failing umbrella, she darted through the bustling streets of Manhattan, her mind replaying stern warnings from her landlord about the impending eviction. "How much can you handle?" he sneered, rosy from the whiskey stashed in his office drawer. Ella was long acquainted with the stares that followed hair-a-tattered trench coat, expertly mended where holes had betrayed the fabric's age, hung on her slim frame. Layers of the city's grime seemed etched into her skin, a testament to battles fought daily to simply exist in a city that had little room for mercy. Her fingers, calloused from sleepless nights, spent swirling brushes against canvases in a meager studio apartment, formed the only barrier to the world's relentless onslaught. The rain came harder as she hurried past luxury stores, their gleaming windows whispering tales of unattainable dreams. Her eyes caught the reflection of a necklace emeralds glowing like green flames, symbols of an opulence she'd been taught to admire but never dared to claim. Across the street, noise erupted. A sleek black Volvo screeched to an unexpected halt, narrowly missing Ella as the driver cursed in surprise. She stumbled, landing in a puddle as the car door swung open. "Watch where you're going!" The man, tall and intimidating with a voice that cut through the downpour, towered over her. He extended a well-polished hand, rain droplets bouncing off his leather jacket, gesture marred by frustration. "Sorry, she stammered, her eyes meeting his, the color of storm clouds over the Hudson. Time seemed to pause, the world around them stifled by a rare silence only found in moments of chance. With a huff, he returned to his car, muttering something about reckless people, driving off into the pulse of the city. Later, as fate would weave its tapestry, they met again in the warm confines of a corner cafe. She was lost in her thoughts, sketching on a serviette when a voice strangely familiar interrupted her solitude. "Mind if I join you?" It was the man from earlier, now a stranger transformed. His eyes, though still stormy, had softened in the glow of dimmed lights. A tenuous smile betrayed his seemingly stern demeanor. "Suit yourself," she replied, her curiosity piqued, but guarded by years of familiar disappointments. They sat in silence, the air thick with unspoken stories as the aroma of freshly ground coffee bound them in an unexpected companionship. He watched her, noting the grace hidden beneath layers of struggle. "It's funny," he said, finally breaking the silence as he stirred his coffee, "how New York has its way of throwing people together." Ella's gaze was fixed on him, noticing how he fiddled unconsciously with a silver ring-a-band, too ornate to be merely decorative. Her mind conjured questions she dared not voice. "Yes, funny," she echoed, her fingers tracing idle patterns on the table. "What brings you to a place like this?" "Oh, I'm just anyone," he shrugged, getting by, trying not to run over dreamers in the rain. And as she studied him, a seed of mystery began to sprout, his casual confession dressed in understatement, his presence too controlled for mere coincidence. Yet, just as quickly as it started, the moment dissolved into the noisiness of other patrons and the hiss of the espresso machine demanding attention. He rose to leave, a hint of amusement lingering in his expression. "I'm Giovanni," he offered, sliding a business card across the damp table. "Ella," she replied, taking the card, noting its elegant simplicity. "Giovanni Castillo." She returned home, Giovanni's business card wedged between pages of her sketchbook. The name haunted her thoughts as she painted peculiar muse-inspiring strokes of vibrancy against canvas. When sleep finally came, it was restless, interrupted by dreams where stormy eyes revealed stories untold. Days passed, Ella engrossed in routines. Life pressed on, persistent in its pursuit of her spirit. Then an envelope, meticulously sealed, found its way under her door. Her name, written with familiar strokes. Inside, a single line read, "There's more than coffee, if you're interested." Ella stood, heart thrumming with a rhythm foreign to her composed nature, unsure whether destiny or danger beckoned from the unknown. A figure lingered in the shadows of her apartment's hallway, a silhouette momentarily etched before vanishing into the evening's descent. Later, Ella's fingers, trembling ever so slightly, rested on the ledge of her window. Outside, New York pulsed and thrived, unaware of the maelstrom within a modest room. She gazed into the night, her thoughts a whirlwind of anticipation, each frame painting the path toward an undefined horizon. The letter lay abandoned on the floor, an unresolved promise. "Who are you, really?" she whispered into the night, echoing into the void. The city withheld its secrets, leaving her wreathed in intrigue as she pondered Giovanni's cryptic invitation. A shadow loomed at her window. Promise of revelations to come. The envelope Ella found was elegant but unassuming, like a swan feather disturbed from its place. The paper matched the shade of moonlight creeping through her window, but it was the weight of what it implied that pressed on her mind most heavily. "Meet me where the city hides beneath its most opulent veil," the note had continued, as if the words themselves were breathed secrets unearthed only to her. "Ella, what are you doing thinking so recklessly?" she murmured to herself, her breath a cloud against the cool glass, as she leaned against the windowsill of her tiny apartment. Her reflection looked back at her with apprehensive eyes, caught between a longing for escape from reality's chokehold and a fear of what liberty might ultimately demand of her. The chill of dawn had barely lifted when she stepped out the next day, her heart still drumming in a pattern unfamiliar and exhilarating. The morning had brought little solace, city sounds weaving a tapestry of incessant urgency around her arm. That subtle scent of rain, now mingled with the curious aroma of freshly baked bread wafting from the bakery she dutifully passed, was almost enough to distract her. Her reflection upon a store's window caught her attention, and her eyes lingered on shadowless versions of herself. Hounded for time, her eyes danced across the names of designers she'd only ever been able to appreciate from afar. Somewhere in the reflection, she saw herself pocketing small artistic wins, moments of triumph lined by living from one sketch sale to another, just enough to make everything else float in the background. The invitation had alluded to a location rarely frequented by people like her, but she was drawn to the letter's mystery, fueled by curiosity and the thrill of Iliada's implication that lingered like a tuning fork vibrating within her soul. By afternoon, she'd followed Giovanni's ambiguous directions to an unfamiliar place, making sure to pack away her self-doubt as she ventured forth. Her tattered coat flapped like wings, trying too hard to stay airborne, winds disobeying any sort of caution. The entrance of Forgotten Alley preceded by grand columns, veiled in a name that society preferred not to acknowledge, whispered exclusivity, a lavish secret you couldn't whisper about without consequence. Reluctantly, she pushed open a set of heavy velvet curtains, the sensation like silk slipping over her hands. The room within wasn't what she expected, a dimly lit sanctuary rather conspiratorial. The room seemed frozen before susceptible to time's ravages, abundant with accessories from a world of opulence. A man approached her, moved syncopated with the thump of her heartbeat that seemed tangled with the bass strumming softly from a corner speaker. He carried a polished air, unmistakably placed and yet defying description. "Welcome, Ella. Giovanni has been anticipating your arrival." His words perforated the ambient tension, each syllable skewing reality as she knew it. She swallowed hard, biting at her lower lip with quiet apprehension, like standing on the precipice of an unseen world. Shadows danced across polished wooden floors. She trembled ever so slightly under Giovanni's remembrance. From across the room, Giovanni sprang into view. He wasn't the stranger who emerged from behind black wheels in the rain-drenched streets, as she soon observed. He skated through others' expectations with a calm grace she found almost poignant. "There's more beyond survival, you know," he said, his eyes piercing through her guarded demeanor with deliberate intensity. "Art deserves to breathe. It shouldn't suffocate under survival's weight." They moved deeper into the room, his presence filling spaces before it could feel empty. Her pulse danced unpredictably within her frame, curiosity choking trepidation, and she found words unsteady as they surged towards an explanation of her encapsulated world. His invitation promised revelations she hardly anticipated, but the stark sincerity cut through the veneer of his crafted city harshness. And so, together they stood, amidst marbled reflections and clandestine whisper she, a confident bearer of transformative alterations, she, an artist whose passion lingered always upon her fingertips. As the evening progressed, Giovanni led Ella into an adjoining room. "It's important you see this," he assured, the words a lock undoing into trust. Opening the grand door revealed what resonated closer to a gallery then a room of vast canvas interrupted only by absence. Her eyes widened at so much unscripted possibility. Pick one, he encouraged, an undercurrent of seriousness betraying his earlier lightness. The canvases hung empty, waiting for time's work to seep into each fiber. Ella stood speechless, her fear of inadequacy battling newfound determination. But why? She pondered aloud, her voice a thinner version of inquiry, unfurling, exploring. Not everything can wait, Ella, Giovanni murmured, his eyes tracing the arch of her resistance. Dreams need more than survival. They demand risk. Before her stood blank entities, yet Giovanni trusted her to unleash beauty within the cavernous space, painting life upon the frozen remnants of untouched vision. Time moved in staccato rhythms. With confidence, she touched the surface with tentative familiarity, a brush reassuring her fears. Underneath her fingertips, possibilities unraveled, a sensation coaxed into being from a conscience laid bare. She painted furiously, her own fears imprisoned by each streak of color, Giovanni's watchful eyes framing her as part of this evolving creation. Just as surely as the canvas became an outlet for Ella's unyielding truth, Giovanni, with every brushstroke, transformed from an unlikely benefactor to something further. A strange enigma demanding revelation. Her doubts weren't to remain the infamous motif of their interaction. Her struggle mirrored his caution. Yet between their disparate stories lingered a harmony, a dulcet symphony whispered beneath the cacophony of their lives. Together, they wrestled ghosts until her vision manifested wholly upon the canvas. Finally finished, she placed her hand upon her heart, a silent acknowledgement of the intangible tether connecting her to worlds unseen. Reflection engulfed defiance, life bursting from all corners of her creation as if in revolt. Giovanni stood by her side, the aura of mystery only partly unfurling in the corridor streaming between them, her brushstrokes a testament to their unrealized unison. Her turmoil trapped within every choice to breathe her truth into existence. He broke their silence gently, his words a salve to her wearied soul. It's not just art, it's expression. Her bravery stared back at them both, inviting the viewer to step within its depths, rather than merely exist upon its surface. A quiet clamor underscored their departure, a whispered fissure that began to spread between their colliding worlds. And as the lights dimmed, Ella took one last look. She turned to him, words like sinew draped in resolve. Giovanni, what are you hiding? He shifted slightly, a shadow playing hauntingly upon his features. Observed from afar, Hoodston's skyline flickered into existence, a microcosm unfurling below them with ceaseless energy. His lips caught hers off guard with the briefest of smiles, his eyes betraying secrets she couldn't begin to unravel. The silhouette of an answer lay hidden in the crevices of his half-formed promises. In its absence, the city unraveled, whispering reminders of their presence soon decoupled, yet bound by more truths than she dared imagine. Find me again, she implored, a vow intertwined, riding upon the wind. He turned, the fabric of his coat catching the city's illumination one last time, wrapped within the mystery of shadows. The door closed behind her softly, echoing the rhythm of anticipation in her step. On the desk waited the Mysteria gun, strangely ordinary, untouched but undeniable. Ella paused, her hand halting over the unmistakable weight of decisions yet unmade. Doubts faded, leaving a singular thought scanning the borders of uncertainty. Why now? She whispered to the world laying silent beneath her feet. Giovanni's lips covered hers in a deliberate, magnetic kiss, rupturing the tether of her preconceptions. As his warmth lingered on her skin, breathless bewilderment cascaded down her spine, blurring minutes into moments. When he pulled away, there was an unspoken promise in his gaze, a contradiction bound with desire and danger. We hide to protect, Ella, he whispered, a compelling murmur dovetailing the remnants of their intimate cocoon. Ella's world spun off its axis, shadows playing games across the walls of Giovanni's opulent lair. Had she severely underestimated the volatile tempest swirling within him? Behind that veil of aloof benevolence, she feared the expanse of his untold reality. Her painted canvas a storm of vivid strokes capturing steel bridges against a roiling sky hung incomplete, yet viciously alive, bleeding the emotion she channeled into each gesture. But whispers hovered at the periphery of her awareness, telling tales her heart was too frightened to translate. Giovanni's shadow loomed closely behind as they exited the gallery, leaving a tapestry of untold stories pinned to the air around them. He led her back towards the bustling streets, where luxury cars punctuated the city's heartbeat, unresolved and thriving. Crunching glass punctuated her reverie, a bottle discarded in haste, and Ella's steps faltered. The world snapped into focus. Her peeling coat, the unyielding skin, the weight of her unsung potential. Her hands trembled as she shoved them deep into her pockets. They halted at a crosswalk. The red light mimicked the flush on her cheeks, stinging with questions unposed. "What did you truly want from me?" she asked. "A chance," he replied, eyes glinting with mischievous intensity. "For you to see the kingdom hidden between concrete shadows." His words were cryptic, leaving more unsaid than resolved. But the sensation of not knowing everything thrilled her senses anew, not as unanswered questions, but as potential revelations, burgeoning with possibility. In this odyssey of streets and secrets, the city pulsed ceaselessly against the silk of her sensibilities. Her pulse answered in kind, hammering a rhythm of its own. The apartment greeted her with silence and the scent of aged books, an anchor in a swirling sea of intrigue. Carefully, she laid Giovanni's card atop her weathered stack of canvases. Time stole away as she sat by the window, tracing the outline of unknown futures stretching before her. Giovanni's king-like paradox matched the cunning intentions gleaned from their midnight dance beneath chandeliers. But her eyelids grew heavy, and as she drifted, dreams tapped at the fringes of clarity. Her slumber conjured twisted visages of art and betrayal, bound by Giovanni's hooded eyes offering enigmas that braided trust and treason. Dreams fled as dawn wove its crafting fingers through the city's fabric. Sunlight bled mercilessly into her room, commanding life to resume. Reality, though, encroached like a slow tide, and with it, an envelope of creamy parchment loomed invitingly under her door. She urged her hands forward, urged them to action, to revelation. Peeling back its seal, her heart drummed a frantic tempo. She extracted its contents. A silver key gleamed atop a slip of paper, inked with elegant strokes dancing in rhythms, for spaces not yet known. This simple offering, shielded from overt meaning, glimmered with Giovanni's characteristic ambiguity. Its weight brought a resolute clarity tangled in her mind, an opportunity she couldn't ignore, burgeoning with risk and allure. Ella pondered the key's symbol, threadbare hope woven around its metallic lusters. Her fingers curled around it, the weight burgeoning with unspoken challenges. Interlaced with its promise, a calculated wager mystery unfurled in whispers of steel. She sat for hours contemplating its possible purpose, before finally settling on her decision. Thoughts spent, she buttoned her coat and set out, the mid-morning dampness wrapping around her like a shroud. Streets shifted beneath her feet, converging into the realm of slippery echoes, tantalizing her thoughts to echo their chorus. Her destination yielded gold-flecked buildings with facades harboring whispers of wonder. A journey into unknown places. That's what Giovanni had in mind, a journey challenging her understanding of art, identity, truth. When she reached the door hidden among monochrome cityscapes, the key fit perfectly, a sound part lock, part liberation. The interior encapsulated realms of muted elegance, each corner bearing the patina of time halted. Giovanni's world and alchemist's vessel, hidden in a sorcerer's grip. The space whispered wisdom from ancient echoes. In this sanctuary, silence held court until his voice fragmented the profundity. Ella. Turning toward the voice, she saw him leaning against a wall, an observer in this peculiar arena. His presence commanded a strange, simmering gravity. "This isn't just about art, is it?" she accused gently, unpeeling each word from the core of truth. He answered with a deliberation brewing from depths unnamed. "It never was. Not wholly." A chill breeze passed, a ghost unrelenting in its dance. Her heart cradled the dagger of unknown alliances, stepped into a shadow. Thinking herself a pawn, Ella's transformation into night unfolded intricately, carved by Giovanni's narrative. Her words slipped threadbare, hung with an air of intrigue's aftermath. Then what, Giovanni? What promises are crowned in shadows? Darkness ebbed at their feet, a tide awaiting to wash away her hesitations in exquisite ruins. Silence sang, cradling themes of possibility and threat, merging inescapable, their shared future painted by strokes of unversed resolution. In the depths of their veiled understanding, enmity whispered sweetly in her doubt-laden ears. Finally Giovanni spoke, a beacon through the hushed confluence. Will you venture where others fear to tread? A tension like taut silk unfurled between them. Into your world, she whispered. Her question blossomed between Manhattan's dusk-streaked horizon. But as Giovanni moved, shadows cast in impossible shapes bent around forgotten secrets. He left her hanging with unadulterated mystery. A single word tonight. The hiss of espresso intermingled with murmurs of sharp intent. Giovanni's shadow, an enigma of authority, cut across the cafe's warm glow, leaving Ella suspended in an orchestrated silence. His words, like a low rumble of distant thunder, carried the weight of revelation and ruin. Secrets can break the strongest of allegiances, Ella, he uttered, his voice a velvet whisper carrying an unforeseen depth of authority. In the mundane attire of the cafe's patrons, Ella's presence had always merged seamlessly into the backdrop. Faded charcoal coat and a pair of scuffed boots told stories of the Manhattan streets. Yet, seated across from Giovanni, whose poised demeanor hinted at command far beyond the realm of polite society, she felt like a pawn abandoned amidst a game of kings. Her curiosity pushed against cautious disbelief. Behind Giovanni's charming facade lay whispers of a world spun from secrets. Each of Giovanni's movements seemed deliberate, calculated, a spider patiently managing his vast web. Yet beneath that careful choreography, his stormy gaze betrayed a tenderness, a reflection of humanity grounding him in the dim ambiance of the cafe. Ella's fingers tapped idly on the wooden table. She fought the urge to ask, to probe further into unexplored depths. Instead, silence held her conversation hostage, filled only by the rhythmic tapping of summer rain against glass. Her pulse thrummed in synchrony with the downpour, a relentless reminder of lives threaded with uncertainty and the perpetual chase for clarity. Giovanni leaned closer, his forehead bathed in the cafe's golden light before sinking into shadows. I see a warrior in you, Ella, he mused, drawing closer to the heart of mystery, a fighter with an artist's heart. The flattery danced over her, brushing yet not settling a dream too alluring to trust. Words are hollow when shadowed by intentions unexplored, Ella countered softly, each syllable an arrow probing the armor of his crafted allure. A sigh escaped him, woven with threads of resignation and resolve. A storm raged behind his composure, suggesting a reality beyond her knowing. Stay tonight, he urged, offering more than a mere invitation to test, a rite of passage into the unlit corridors of his truth. As her mind wrestled with the folds of his suggestion, flickering streetlights danced an unrehearsed ballet outside. Donda shadows leapt like silent sentinels keeping watch. Dark velvet skies bore witness as they traversed the rain-kissed streets together, prowling cityscapes shrouded in nocturnal obscurity. His sanctuary was an opulent contrast to worldly decay. Candlelight flickered within marbled depths, banishing darkness into reluctant retreat. Ella paused at the threshold, caught off guard by the ethereal elegance devoid of pretension that enveloped Giovanni's domain. A grand piano stood solitary yet sure, its surface polished to an obsidian sheen, reflecting a world both real and surreal. Her breath caught as fingers itched to strike notes on its ebony tangents. Let music be the answer, if words fail, Giovanni suggested, his tone thick with the presumed certainty of an inevitable crossing. With a hesitant grace, Ella approached, allowing fingertips to hover, to linger, before coaxing a melody from the dormant beast. Each note sang of hesitation, then defiance, a symphony arising from an uncharted heart. Giovanni observed quietly, a contest of shadows and light flickering across his countenance, a dance of pride and burgeoning respect. When you play, stories unfold, he remarked, each word a cloak to her silent, rising storm of unease and enchantment. Ella's heart surged, beating against the restraining bars of doubt and desire within the nuance of unexpected intimacy. Thunder grumbled distantly as the melody faded, the briefest flick of mystery lighting Giovanni's gaze. An intimacy deeper than touch unfolded between them, complex and unmatched by any formula known. Night's embrace grew bold, enfolding their world into quieter conversations, sharing tales woven across a chessboard spanning the divide between empire and artist. Your world is intoxicating, Ella admitted, the vulnerability of a whisper complementing shadows cast by the candle's gentle sway. The admission was a key turning on the lock of her own hesitations, a daring flight from pragmatism to peculiar firmament. Giovanni smelled a half-formed promise, balanced between mirth and melancholy, his hand resting lightly against his heart, as though to calm an undisclosed ache. "Do you regret stepping into this world?" he queried, a daring challenge glinting in his voice. She hesitated, a silent ache stark against hidden desires, not knowing whether embrace or derision would usher in her answer. "In stepping through these doors," Ella confessed, weaving her truth with vulnerability's thread, "I've learned more of myself than the streets and solitude ever revealed." Their dialogue, fraught with layered tension, drew realism from few unsaid words shedding superficial veneers. Giovanni leaned forward, catching the half-light across his features, intensity a border for his truth still unspoken. "Your life with me won't be easy." The warning, a sotto voce chant, an acknowledgement of imminent trials. Her response was a breathy laugh, almost recklessly lush in its sincerity. "When has life ever promised simplicity?" City sounds murmured against window panes, carrying echoes of unseen havens beyond their sanctuary. Giovanni moved forward, his lips embracing the poignant promise of another possibility, before transforming into a unison between doubt and courage. "I offer you a place beside me," Giovanni declared, the proposition wielding power enough to transform destinies. The proposal resonated with nuanced derision and compassion, an odyssey growing within city confines even as it tempted distraction. With tempered exhalations, she met his gaze, each glance tethered in profound disbelief, yet sensing destiny dance across midnight's precipice. As silence thickened, the music of their choices reverberated until, at last, Giovanni reached into his coat, producing a singular promise swaddled in secrecy. A varnished box lay across her palm's breadth, a tangible mystery cradled in unspoken trust. "Open it," he whispered, breath light against her ear. With trepidation, Ella lifted the clasp, a thrill coursing through nerves parting resistance. Inside, in an unforeseeable twist, lay an array of keys, not of metal but ivory, each etched with symbols reflecting concealed chapters of Giovanni's uncharted history. A gasp escaped Ella's parted lips, mystified by realities reshaping before her eyes. And for the first time, she wondered if she had crossed paths with not just a man, but an empire. Surely Giovanni insisted on wielding mysteries as both charm and armor. Outside, moonlight fractured Giovanni's silhouette anew, granting him the guise of specters past, and perhaps more importantly, specters yet to come. "This isn't a proposition. It's a reign." Giovanni's words fell heavy, an empire dangled like the sword of Damocles. Ella blinked, her heart skipping in the quiet shock of his proposition. Reign. The implication plummeted her into silence, the gravity of his offer stark against the quiet elegance surrounding them. Ella Rivers had swiftly become enmeshed in a reality spun from Giovanni Castillo's mysterious orbit and unplanned heroine in an unwitting journey. Her artist eyes, accustomed to spotting hidden nuances, found themselves in dizzying revelation. Against the soft blush of morning light streaming through unguarded windows, her humble studio seemed a world away, far removed from the interrupted symphony of Giovanni's clandestine chambers. Her life prior to meeting him felt as if it had existed in a different dimension, one where routine held the upper hand, never the fleeting possibility of dynasties unfolding between candlelit whispers. Her fingers, tracing patterns on the smooth ivory keys before her, hesitated. With those keys, Giovanni all but handed her access to the heart of his clandestine empire yet to be understood, an unexpected overture as striking as any crescendo. "You trust too easily," she mused, an edge of caution coloring her words, shaped by a life oscillating between survival and dreams. He regarded her quietly, shadows playing along his jawline, the effect both magnetic and unsettling. "Or perhaps you don't trust enough." The ricochet of his verbal parry settled like dust, unresolved, fragile, and alive. Every conversation with Giovanni felt like skirting the edges of dangerous art, with truths wielded like brushes over canvas, shadowing intent beneath strokes of charming indifference. Yet Ella found herself inexplicably drawn closer, perilously ensnared by the layers of elegance and enigma. Encountering him shifted her understanding of the city surrounding them, place teeming with characters learning to live between monochrome lines of assumed grandeur. As she walked beside Giovanni back into the city's bustling embrace, Ella couldn't shake the notion that every street corner housed more tripwires than she could comprehend, each promising revelations wrapped in velvet deceit. His world breathed beyond the scope of her habitual orbit, crafting stories as elusive as morning mist in winter. Giovanni paused suddenly, his eyes flicking to hers with a solemn gravity. "Why do you think I brought you this far, Ella?" A city bus roared past, enveloping them momentarily in plumes of exhaust. She found her voice through the chaos, yellowed headlights reflecting on rain-dappled streets. "I thought I knew, but now I'm not certain of what I imagined." In answer, Giovanni captured her hand, holding it within his own, a simple gesture brimming with unspoken intent. His touch ached with familiar uncertainties as they continued walking in silence. The pressure mounted from directions unknown, yet clearly existing, whispering advances she couldn't ignore. The pull of his world snaked its way into her consciousness like an ornate serpent coiled in shadows, daring her to reach for a future previously inconceivable. But Giovanni's intentions, his real intentions, remained hidden behind veils of carefully constructed allure. Their evening concluded in silence, a silence filled with churning echoes of questions Ella refused to voice. Giovanni escorted her to her building, shadows embroidering the muted fabric of their shared journey beneath indifferent city lights. "Tomorrow holds answers," he promised, his silhouette framed by the city's relentless pulse. She nodded, an acceptance marked more by momentum than certainty. "And what about tonight's questions?" He smiled lightly, though sadness threaded its edges. "Tonight, just sleep." Yet Ella knew that battles raged more fiercely in dreams than reality could conjure. She entered her apartment, its calm familiarity holding a keen juxtaposition against the screenplay of dual existences she untangled for herself. Her mind a whirlpool of scenarios, a kaleidoscope of possibilities, fabricated by fireside conversations and Giovanni's persisting enigma. Before surrendering to sleep's embrace, she thumbed through her sketchbook, comforted by the ink profusions she had tattooed into paper. An abstract vase in hues of indigo, that color a specter of constancy. A delicate harmony woven to resonant notes trailed her into slumber, quickening into the embrace of dreams where Giovanni's shadow shifted, morphing into spectral dancers on a stage before a timeless abyss. The morning, ripe with promise, came adorned in rain-washed clarity. Ella moved through routines with newfound resolve. Giovanni awaited her at the cafe, a routine that offered deceptive ease against possibilities branching into infinity. As they sat across each other, the hum of espresso machines crafting symphonic backdrops, she found an unexpected steadfastness within. Ella began, "You mentioned answers, but am I wrong to think the complexity lies in questions unasked?" A grin flickered like the sun's reflection across rolling waves. "We learn only through doors willingly opened, you know?" The chops of subtext drove their conversation, interspersed by tall orders of Americano and croissants flaking about their elbows. Wind played its untamed symphony as they stepped outside. Stirred rain cloaked the world in shimmering hues. Dyes melted smoothly over pavements, unraveling their story. "Let me show you," Giovanni offered. Taking his hand, she realized it was within the network of Giovanni's intricate design her artistry found freedom, and her identity weaved celestial fabrics, fringed yet seamless. The world tingled with anticipation as she stepped beside Giovanni into his car, the engine's roar an overture, preluding revelation. The car sped swiftly through the city, streets blurring into an indistinct yet strangely coherent continuity. Destiny wove through their interaction, strings pulled finely, unrivaled in this interlock of ambition and artistry partnered, stitched by Giovanni's understated legacy. When they came to a stop, Ella stood at the foot of a skyline dominated by breathtaking magnitude, underpinned by Giovanni's empire, the architecture housing vast secrets within cascading shadows. Welcome, he declared, casting upon the structure his weightless yet assured influence. With cane in hand, Giovanni strode toward the entrance, as if leading her into a grand ballroom opening onto the world. As they stepped inside, the air vibrated with unspoken stories, the silence charged with anticipation. An assistant, precise and efficient, awaited their instructions, holding on to blueprints detailing intentions and aspirations writ large. Giovanni motioned toward the grand space, expansive enough to wear ambition like its finest adornment. I intend to see your art transcend, Giovanni shared, resonant timbre laced with both vision and eagerness. Ella moved through the majestic expanse, each corner whispering tales of potential, just waiting to grasp realization. Walls stretched, all reaching spires, hostages unto aspirations that demanded the narration of 1,000 stories to comprehend the scope. Ella turned slowly, atmospheric pressure sinking alongside comprehension within her chest. This was to become a herald of artistry, peaking beneath city comprehensions, breathing new life into nullity. Giovanni's empire, shrouded with tangible possibilities in stone-glass execution, marked the delineation, unfurled destinies finding intersection despite shadowed setbacks. This, Giovanni indicated, underscored by their shared locus of possibility, is where stories metamorphose. Her vision found clarity amidst opportunity, recognizing avenues through which talent would bloom resplendent. Emergence surged anew in her perception, amidst growth watered by a businessman's secretive devotion to candor. You're truly offering this, she said, eyes reflecting brilliance unmatched beneath hues of untold revelation. To someone who sees beyond, Giovanni responded, his voice alighting not as echo but as vow. She turned to the windows, witnessing the world sprawling asymmetrical in form, perceptions stretching past horizons hung with possibility. What else waits? She asked softly, voice astride inquisitiveness and gratitude. He merely joined her before grand panes, watching horizons tremor into sunset fragments, his gaze contemplative, holding expansions of enterprise unparalleled. Moments passed between them, electric with possibilities not yet fully voiced. Giovanni valued transparency and rise, even amid mysteries unfurling veiled behind evolving notions. The hush of evening's approach offered a tranquility as Giovanni's voice broke subtle, yet potent a caress over ideas beating in parallel harmony. Our world crests with the unknown, he murmured, a gentle sonnet written anew. Yet in shared vision, inspiration lies eternal. In Giovanni's presence and beneath omniscient city skies, Ella accepted potential she had never realized before. As his legacy unfolded clearly in paneled refrains, her purpose aligned amidst reflections rekindled with possibility. And as dusk settled, joined in restless majesty, a path wandering across skyline's embrace, clarity crystallized into dawn's fortune. Yet, as entrancing night crept inward of shadows stretching from depths unknown, something shifted. A tremor no earth knew at this hour's edge. A single line of abrupt clarity cast amidst mystery unrelenting, Giovanni whispered close, his gaze holding secrets momentarily untamed. Time cannot halt. Ella, tomorrow awaits decisions only you can comprehend. Her hand trembled as she reached for the velvet box. Shadows danced again, a relentless waltz on the periphery of reason, whispering the mysteries that seemed to linger in Giovanni's world. But the touch of the velvet was not comforting. It was a breath held between anticipation and fear. The heart of the city thudded against the walls of her studio like a second heartbeat. Ella set the box aside, choosing instead the familiar embrace of her paintbrush sword against the uncertainty now painting her landscape. The soft swish of bristles on canvas was a lullaby, a protest against the chaos swirling around Giovanni's empire. Underneath the sharp yellow light, the texture of the canvas felt like home. It called to the corners of her soul, desiring peace. Her paints, aged but vibrant, spoke a language she deeply understood, a palette of echoes and dreams where passion knew no adversary. Yet within her artistry lay an instability, a sore reminder that everything now had consequence. The door to her studio remained unlatched, a symbol of trust she hoped against rationality would not be breached. The metro line clattered by, its cadence a reminder of the world's perpetual pace, indifferent to her internal tempest. Giovanni had offered a world, and with it the keys to unlock its hidden chambers, promising everything and nothing all at once. She fingered the ivory keys again, studying the intricate carvings with half-whispered prayers. Was she to be designer, one who sketched dreams onto the landscape of his shadowed kingdom? The wind hummed its song against the window pane, finding Franz's familiarity through the storm-embattled skyline. Ella found herself remembering the weight behind Giovanni's words. The authority of trust dangled perilously. And she pondered those moments when his eyes softened, despite the kingdom he sought to grant. The world closed, and Ella indulged the Fantasia dance amidst marble halls where whispers made the music. But tangibly, this place housed uncertainty. What tangled tapestry was she now to weave? Ella could hear Giovanni's voice, ever the enigma, casting shadows with each turn of phrase. Can you see beyond? Not just the art, but what holds beneath. She was an artist adrift among mercurial tape, her last masterpiece questioned by powers beyond contours and strokes. Yet she harbored a fire inside, kindled by Giovanni's unguarded moments. Gentle, almost fatherly warnings, a caress of power held in check. Her survival depended not on submission, but on transcending the ordinary, in challenging destiny's imposed limits. By the time night cast its deep curtain, the studio transformed under Ella's grips a vibrant storm on canvas, affording glimpses of her dual existence. But the chill wouldn't leave her bones. Curiosity lingered on the wrong side of resolution. Giovanni. The name teetered on her lips, a monolith of intrigue in a monsoon universe. And while forbidden allure painted mysteries in vast tomes, Giovanni's presence evoked an echo she dared not conjure fully. Evening swept in silently, slipping on satin soles through the air thick with encroaching rain. The city roared around her, its hum a testimony to stories Ella would never write. She found herself at Giovanni's tower, standing at the cusp of inevitability, cupping moments ephemeral as moths fluttering shadows across the pier lights. His kingdom loomed as mythic, dwelling on power's thrilling edge, modernity embraced in its cement veins. As she approached, the building itself seemed to hold its breath, a hulk of glass whispering promises. Night enclosed Giovanni's world in a hushed embrace, bidding her enter the tale she half-dreamed. Inside, the warmth differed from his opulent lair. Here, shadows held stories of their own, illusions pieced together on a chessboard Ella had yet to learn. Giovanni appeared, dapper yet menacing in his palpable politeness. In him resided paradox, charm as armor, menace like a dagger shelved behind a gentleman's warmth. Ella, have we not crossed fate's path? He greeted her with eyes gleaming in muted light, the world's possibilities folded behind their crystalline depths. This place, it belongs as much to you as to me now. Her brow arched, skepticism inherent in every syllable. You weave fairy worlds well, Giovanni. But how deep is their root? His laughter was quiet, a richer transparency than she anticipated, resonating within the corridors of this architectural colossus. Depth is found where dreams anchor themselves. The tour he offered traversed worlds within worlds, shadow realms where whispers stitched together realities untamed by daylight's stark authority. With each step, Giovanni unfurled threads of ambition, wrapped in a cloak of secrecy, and trust nodded cautiously as her feet traced paths long theorized. Tools of creation lay neglected, waiting revival under her hand, inheritors of grandeur uncaged by tempered wills. Inspiration set in glass and steel, within her reach just as Giovanni envisioned. A soft serenity nestled beneath latent potential tugged at Ella's defenses. She willed herself to grace, understanding Giovanni's unparalleled vision, both her cage and her muse's grand horizon. Giovanni paused, voice tinged with vulnerability, rare even to himself. Ella, the world sees only what it wishes. You must craft what it overlooks. His charge lingered, an insistent call to arms within destinies unwritten. Ella's heart quaked against the decision laid before her. Outside, neon pulse bathed their shared perimeterman, muse, and dreams mingling amongst the towering columns. The city exhaled a concerted sigh, snapping strings of her reality moved towards liberation. As their tour ended, Giovanni stood, the city's humanity reflected across his stoic resolve. Our paths have woven fate undeniable, he whispered. The expanse before them waited, a canvas unblemished by doubted potentials, brightly lit by imaginings flawed by human nature. And yet, suddenly, Giovanni's phone chimed, plucking him from their woven spell. He answered, posture rigid as secrets passed distantly along cords unseen. His expression flickered, troubles now bubbling upon a clouded horizon. Giovanni's return glance carried tension's fraying weight, a swirling force of power preparing silently before eruption. Ella met his gaze with defiance carved from shared understanding. The mark of reassurance returned runaway across smiles unfulfilled, but promising trust. Will this change things? She inquired. Confidence forged sharp, yet nestled against empathy found amidst chaos. And from Giovanni, only a muted pause, momentary solemnity woven seamlessly within his reply. The city as witness, he held the silence, breathing words heavy with duality. Will it ever not? He finally answered, voice enigma within, a mirage dancing upon an air once sunk in anticipation. The elfin embrace of night wrapped around Giovanni and Ella, as the air crackled between intention unspoken and action yet undertaken. The caution of those ivory keys she still carried bespoke courage without form. Thus, as they parted, enigma unfurled its gossamer cloak across the city skyline. Hidden truths echoed on lips shaping destinies anew. With a downward glance, Ella discovered Giovanni's ivory cat's intricate designs bathed in amber ambiance, whispering futures held within frenetic threads of her heart's design. And as the tower closed behind her, anticipation cast mystery's shadow and echoes unseen, egg moon haloing their dual destinies. Will we make it ours? A question suspended in time's orbit, haloed in destiny's resolve. You don't know what you're about to lose. Giovanni's voice, sharp and laced with the gravity of unsaid declarations, cut through the room like a blade. His words hung in the air, casting shadows darker than the evening depths that had settled within their isolated enclave. The allure of Giovanni's world had drawn her, promised realms beyond Ella River's prior contemplation, and yet the essence of what she risked remained as elusive as smoke in candlelight. Ella sat quietly on a weathered bench within Giovanni's expansive studio, room deceivingly intimate despite its gilded moldings and cavernous ceiling. Behind closed doors, she was a voyeur to his mystery, yet there stood an insistent reminder. Her own life played out among humble canvases, a contrast to the opulent empire he offered. You assume I have much left to lose, Ella retorted, her voice carrying a weary resilience as she toyed absent-mindedly with a twisted sketch pencil. Its lead scratched her palm, an echo of survival that guided her brushwork through uncertainty. Intent weighed the silence between them. Giovanni perched at the edge of his mahogany desk, his silhouette defined by ambient light that flowed against the decaying dusk, painting his features in dimensions the world had not known. The snap of his eyes toward her carried reverence reserved for art, for battles worn on sleeves frayed from time. Everyone underestimates their own worth, Ella. I see something in you the world has ignored. Rain began to tap a soft cadence against the tall windows. Shadows within the vast room seemed to stretch and coil, reflections playing tricks beyond what the mind could comprehend. You hide behind riddles, Giovanni, Ella challenged. What am I truly here for? He hesitated just briefly, as though consulting with the ghosts that shared their space. Giovanni's empire, so intricately woven, had unexpected cracks. Knowledge, he replied, each syllable steeped in significance, understood only by those unaccustomed to compromise. Giovanni approached, movement purposeful. He offered her a key one of ivory origins, its surface intricately carved and polished to a lustrous finish. She felt its weight, anchoring to the reality that she hovered between. With the key in her grip, Ella witnessed complexities of murals layered on every wall, depictions of merging worlds, quivering in contrast as if a dream awaiting interpretation and breath. Giovanni traced a line along the mural's edge, voice dropping lower with prescient awareness. It's a door you alone can open, when art fuels the soul more than fear. Crisis lingered unspoken, Ava's heart pounding as she grappled not only with Giovanni's vision, but with her own identity slipping amidst perpetual echoes. You seek beauty where others might fear what they'll find, he continued, eyes reflecting the determination of champions, unsinged by fate's inequities. Her trust had been forged slowly, an iron-willed tapestry not sundered by his enigmatic warnings, his concealed battlefield. The city, unyielding beyond protective walls, exhaled its breath of petrol and ambition, offering her existence at its margins as part reassurance and part curse. Inside, spectators gathered in the subdued dimness cast from Giovanni's ancestral mirrors. They held her art much like holding a book of prophecies unsung, bound by leather and silence. Ella rose to approach one such mirror, its surface unmarred yet whispering vows of revelation. Without losing yourself, there is no path where vulnerability does not transform. Her own words surprised even her, the courage of one accustomed to creating worlds vibrant against indifference, conjuring texture out of shade. Each frame in Giovanni's elusive question of empire seemed laced with expectation, as though each would crack at any moment, spilling entwined destinies. Deeper into the mosaic corridors, beyond tapestries hanging like triumphal flags against unseen campaign winds, Giovanni led her further. Arcs of majesty created shadows beneath emerging dawnlight, as soon to brighten reality revealed complexity painted onto vaulted ceilings. Lucas handled art like a powerhouse. He wielded more than just paints upon an easel, Giovanni mused, the conversation shifting as if recounting a folded memory. Ella caught the thread of emotion, a careworn edge, reminiscent of traces found in clandestine portraits. Who was he? She pressed. More than a mentor, Giovanni confessed, close in proximity yet distanced by layers of reflection. He saw what myths obscure beneath grandeur. The warmth of Giovanni's voice breathed understanding, an intertwining that broached past boundaries laid by secrets in structured domains. Enchanted by revelations, Ella leaned into their sphere. There's more then, she hinted, a lyrical acknowledgement of boundaries crossed, liquid courage amid porcelain truths. Giovanni shifted under her gaze, a smile tempered by a lifetime's payable dues. Always more. Their moment was punctuated by the world beyond, city traffic surging, signaling a daily symphony that stood in stark relief against their self-made haven. A sudden crash echoed through the hallway, a shadow breached the sanctum. Ella turning sharply, the echoes reverberated as Giovanni's grip found hers, speedy and protective, holding steady against the unexpected breach. Hesitation laced with instinct painted retraced choreography, yet it was Giovanni's watchful gaze extending assurance, vow between breaths. For what lay beyond the next door held perhaps the purest reconciliation of past and future. Choice awakened behind every line etched upon hands sharing invisible ink's embrace. And so it was that Giovanni leaned nearer, mysterious maw drawing close enough to whisper choices like ancient rites. Ella listened, senses acutely aware of the space collapsing beneath thoughts as the universe expanded beyond singularities of past truths. It all remained a quizzical ceremony accented by Giovanni's soft commands, calling forth latent agency hidden within silk shadows. Together they lingered poised at transformation's cusp, a tapestry unraveling tales woven into fate's loom. Their story continued to sculpt new harmonies amidst the chaos, insisting upon truths surviving in veiled alcoves beyond sight. As the light dimmed, Ella deciphered the unasked questions etched upon Giovanni's furrowed expression. A finale, unspoken requests bid them linger further within uncertain realms. Giovanni's fury hit Ella like a wave, the impact shattering the calm between them. Why didn't you tell me sooner? His voice held the electricity of a storm about to break. The room around them seemed to hold its breath, the walls laden with the weight of Giovanni's incredulity. He towered above her, his ordinarily composed demeanor fractured by a truth he had unwittingly grasped. Ella stood in the middle of Giovanni's ornate study, adorned with books and artifacts hinting at untold stories. Her fingers, stained with remnants of paint, bore testament to the internal conflicts she unearthed. It was never simple, Giovanni, she countered softly, her voice steady yet underscored by the fatigue of secrets long kept. The polished surface of the mahogany desk gleamed under the warming tendrils of a lamp, casting shadows that danced to the rhythm of their escalating confrontation. The air between them crackled, pregnant with raw emotion. Giovanni moved, his frustration tangible, a lion caged within his own intricacies. You kept this from me, and now? Are we to pretend ignorance is protection? Her heart pounded, each beat reverberating with the weight of decisions deferred, a song of defiance, clashing with Giovanni's melody of power. Ella's gaze fell upon the tan envelope Giovanni had discarded earlier, its contents spilling like secrets yearning for light. Giovanni reached for an ornate decanter, pouring amber liquid into a crystal glass. The sound was sharp, slicing through the tension like the cut of a knife. Ella, you have no idea what you're involved in. She met his eyes, stormy and intense, and for a moment everything paused, the world a silent spectator to their unresolved dialogue. I need to understand what's at stake. The steady rain outside tapped a rhythm against the tall windows, as if nature itself whispered urgency into the night. The familiar scent of moss and wood laced the air, grounding Ella in a reality she was fighting to define. As Giovanni placed the glass on the table with a decisive thud, she realized his silence held expectations unwarranted by clarity. You're in deeper than you think, he confessed. Her eyes flicked to the sprawling cityscape beyond the glass tapestry of ambition and despair woven beneath the iron grip of Giovanni's influence. Locked within was a community, a life he controlled with closed fists. The city's heartbeat echoed her internal struggle, rising with the crescendo of unresolved tension. What haven't you told me, Giovanni? What's really happening? Her words, a plea wrapped in persistence. You're asking to open a door that will not close again, Giovanni warned, his expression washed with resolve, stubborn enough to contain world-shaking truths. Within Giovanni's study, shadows grew longer, pooling in corners untouched by the lamplight's golden reach. Fine, Ella relented, but I've seen and painted shadows. I can handle whatever comes. Giovanni set the wineglass aside, his movements calculated, deliberations settled across his shoulders. When he finally spoke, his voice was a whisper of the authority he wore like a second skin. The deal we walk means relinquishing other dreams, Ella. His confession wrapped tightly around her thoughts, a vine climbing the structure of her convictions. Pressed by honesty's unyielding grip, Ella found herself once again examining everything Giovanni's confidence contrived. Who was he, truly inside the layers of power and poise? Her studio had become a sanctuary, threads of wet paint carving restless dreams across each surface, clothing her world in purpose beyond vision. Here, Giovanni's presence was both a catalyst and a shadow lending intensity to her creative fires. I've always believed art cries for freedom, just as humans do, Ella dared, challenging the Empire's silent myths. And if I've learned anything, it's that chains exist even in this grandeur. With a glance, Giovanni heard unresolved turmoil in her voice, acknowledging it with a quiet deliberation. Then let's create something that endures a legacy united by more than ambition. Their conversation, heavy with promises that shimmered against the backdrop of a fragile reality, commanded attention, twisting around them like destiny's invisible thread. A chorus of doubts resounded, echoing Ella's hesitance to reconcile Giovanni's hidden realms. A mosaic of paradises contained potential storms crafted by Giovanni's penumbra, dance choreographed around tales untouched, promises watching from shadowed alcoves. Suddenly, a silhouette moved across the hallway, drawing their attention, a harbinger of what was to unfold. It slipped past the arched doorways, disrupting sanctuary stability. Giovanni's focus tightened, a string pulled too taut. Remember, Ella, he whispered, voice expansive amidst the confined intrigue. We are poised at the start of a storm. The ambiguity of his tone lingered, pulsating with the echo of significance, unexplained. Their shared venture bore testament to the unyielding fabric of trust they had woven despite peril's proximity. Ella met his gaze, understanding they could no longer avoid the tempest looming near. Giovanni's empire didn't hide merely ambition, but truths wielded with an artistry mirroring her own. Suspended within the confines of unspoken agency, she grasped the gravity of Giovanni's next words. Shadows peeled away to reveal tangled paths intertwining realities. Time's voices are loud, Ella, Giovanni acknowledged, as their clandestine disclosure amid legacy remained unfinished. And as they faced the gathering storm, the restless city outside swayed to the cadence of their unresolved narrative. Finally, a drift of unease was left hanging, a single murmur winding through their thoughts, a relic of past confessions waiting to echo. Nothing is as it seems. The streets of Manhattan glistened under a relentless drizzle, the city lights casting a kaleidoscope of colors on the wet pavement. The scent of rain fused with exhaust, creating an urban symphony that felt both familiar and foreboding. Ella stood at the corner, her heart pounding a rhythm that matched the chaotic symphony around her. Her reflection in the graffitied window now seemed foreign, a specter forged from the secrets and shadows she had unearthed with Giovanni. Her fingers traced the outline of the envelope she clutched, the creased paper a testament to her indecision. There was no mistaking the fork-like crack that splintered through her sense of certainty. She inhaled deeply, drawing strength from a world already half-written on her skin. As she entered Giovanni's world, the sanctuary he had so meticulously crafted seemed to pulse with an energy that was almost alive. It was as if the very walls were imbued with the intent and ambition of countless past shadows. "You're a canvas, Ella," Giovanni had said once, eyes smoldering with an intensity that seemed to peel away her very defenses. The lamp above them buzzed lazily in the quiet of Giovanni's ornate study. Even in the softest of lights, the gravity of their last conversation weighed her shoulders. In this world where shadows whispered of conquests, Ella felt like an intruder, always one step away from discovery, a painting searching for its place on the walls of an unknown gallery. "Giovanni," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, tethered by hesitance and revelation. "What are we doing?" Really, Giovanni's silhouette was stark against the rich backdrop of his sanctuary, his gaze penetrating and unwavering. "We are architects of our demise and discovery," he murmured, a cryptic assurance cloaked in eloquence. In the ensuing silence, the world outside seemed to quieten, as if holding its breath for her next move. But it was a pause too extravagant in the shadows it cast, cradling an uncertainty Ella was not ready to face. Clutching the envelope tighter, she remembered the words scrawled in Giovanni's unsettlingly flawless handwriting, a mixture of elegant loops and pointed decisiveness. "To reveal is to seize control," it read, a mantra she wasn't sure she could live by. Just then Giovanni stood, sweeping an arm towards the cavernous expanse of his study, where artifacts of opulence stood in quiet rebellion against simplicity. "Let me show you truth in its grandest form, Ella, beyond curtain and consequence." His words lingered, silk wrapping around the stone. Ella moved, compelled by a pull stronger than curiosity or ambition, a deep, unspoken promise of knowing. His study, vast as it was, diminished in light of a revelation that slumbered beneath each layered echo of Giovanni's calm. Giovanni paused before a tall, gilded armoire, its surface reflecting the muted gold of the evening. With deliberate care, he unlocked its twin doors, revealing a hidden compartment. Nestled within lay a book, its cover a lavish affair of cracked leather and faded embossment. "In here," he said reverently, "are the foundations of this world we've created together." She took a tentative step forward, heart thudding with the gravity of secrets yet unlearned. As her fingers brushed the book's spine, she felt a tremor, as if history itself had awakened to her touch. Giovanni watched her, a ghost of a smile tracing the edges of his lips. "The past has many shrouds, Ella. Here lies one we can unfold together." The book opened with a groan, each page revealing meticulous script and sketches that entwined Giovanni's empire with the city's skeletal framework. Maps of influence, names interlinked like a mosaic of allegiance. What she held was nothing less than an odyssey in ink. "These are more than the plans of an empire, Ella. They are the arteries and veins sustaining our present." Her gaze traveled the ink lines, absorbing the magnitude of Giovanni's machinations. She understood now art was her language, but power was his canvas. She looked up, locking eyes with Giovanni. "And what if we change the art? What if the strokes alter?" Giovanni's expression shifted, a beat of amusement shadowed by earnestness. "Then we evolve," he said, power vibrating in his voice. Their ensuing silence was alive with electricity, each contemplating the paths diverging between tangible truths and envisioned fantasies. Outside, the city continued in its unending waltz, unaware of the dealings and dreams being spun anew within its core. Giovanni's world was a landscape of shadows constantly shifting, yet under Ella's gaze, they seemed to dance in harmony. With every whispered page turned, the room resonated with an ancient pulse, as if history held them in its tender grasp. And finally, Giovanni closed the book, sealing the echoes within. The next move is ours, Ella, he instructed, his tone a gentle decree. The stories we tell now must be painted beyond the strokes we know. Ella nodded, knowing full well the weight of the crossroads they faced, a confluence of what the worlds could become. A distant sound disrupted their accord, a low, unfolding hum that vibrated through the stonework like a warning shot across the bow of fate. The light of the dying day slipped through the open windows, casting an elongated shadow over them both. As they turned towards the inevitable breach, the gravity of the unknown anchored them. Giovanni reached out, his touch as much a question as affirmation. Can you see it now? Beyond veil, mask, and cloak. Ella breathed deep, feeling both exhilaration and apprehension swirl in the quiet spaces where certainty once lay dormant. And in the waning light she held fast to the unspoken commitment suspended between them. The shadows tilted along their path, as if whispering secrets only the night dared echo. Then Ella turned, catching sight of something glinting beyond the threshold, a single clue shrouded in mystery and urgency. Giovanni, she said, her voice steady, her heart poised. Are you ready for what's bound to follow? A smile teased at the corner of his lips, bittersweet in its grace. Always, Ella. Always. Yet as she whispered answers to the stillness, the shadows stirred between them, vaulting secrets only night could keep. Her greatest revelation yet awaited beyond the gilded, fragmented door. An explosion of color erupted in front of Ella's eyes as the fiery dawn spilled through the grand windows of Giovanni's study, scattering an aurora across the vaulted ceilings. Are you ready to leave it all behind, or just begin? Giovanni's words sliced through the prismatic calm like a dagger. Ella stood in the heart of Giovanni's empire, surrounded by the opulence of a world she hadn't dreamed existed. Her hands hovered uncertainly over the worn pages of the leather tome open before her, fingers brushing the maps of power and allegiance inked within. Her mind wrestled with the enormity of the offer before her, and beneath the sheen of allure lay the weight of decision. Giovanni's gaze stayed fixed on her, unyielding and intense, as challenging as the dawn itself. His world was filled with shadows that danced tantalizingly close to the truth, yet always kept their distance, a perpetual waltz of mystery and revelation. Ella glanced around at the ornate artistry of the room, where every surface whispered the secrets of this sanctuary. This, she whispered, the word barely more than a breath. This is more than I ever imagined. Giovanni stepped closer, his footsteps a deliberate echo in the expansive chamber. Yet it's exactly what you were meant for, he replied, eyes reflecting the fire of his conviction. The gravity of his belief in her weighed on Ella as heavily as the choices laid out before them. Could she truly embrace this life, filled with the entangled webs of power and intrigue Giovanni offered? Her thoughts swirled with the intensity of the moment, compounded by the undercurrent of emotion tugging at her resolve. In the silence that followed, the only sound was the soft rustle of pages turning in some secret corner of the universe. As she pondered her fate, a new piercing pressure emerged, a test of loyalty and identity that threatened to unravel everything. The door swung open violently, the crash disturbing the fragile veneer of calm as a menacing figure entered, cloaked in darkness. You both think you can just create your own rules here? The stranger's voice was as cold as the morning light was warm, cutting through the air like a knife. Giovanni's posture shifted, losing none of its regal command, but now layered with a tension sharp enough to crack stone. This is not your concern, he stated firmly, his voice a low but powerful surge against the intruder's icy challenge. Ella felt the world tilt dangerously, the air thickening with the palpable threat now present in the room. The clash of their worlds was tangible, pressing against her senses, challenging her understanding of who she had become in this entwined narrative. The intruder stepped forward, removing the hood of his cloak to reveal eyes like polished onyx, glinting with malice. You're a fool, Giovanni, to believe this partnership offers protection. Protection is not what binds us, Giovanni retorted, turning slightly to glance at Ella, his silhouette cast long by the creeping daylight. Caught in the crossfire of their hidden battlefield, Ella could only grasp for the stability Giovanni's presence had always provided, anchoring her against the swirling chaos. It's time you both learned, the intruder hissed, drawing a slim metallic object from inside his coat. its purpose clear in the sharp reflection of the sun's burgeoning rays. In that instant, Ella's world froze. Choices funneled down into one, acted out in the heartbeat of now. Her eyes darted to Giovanni's face, calm, resolute, unwavering, yet laced with an urgency that dared her to rise. She felt the stirring of something long dormant within her, a determination forged from the crucible of discovery and creation. Here, in this room of infinite possibility, Ella could see in stark relief the pivot point of her existence. Then came the realization that she was not simply a passive participant in someone else's design. She had power of her own. As the metallic threat shifted in her direction, intent and reality confronted, Ella knew she had to act. Drawing strength from every line she had painted, every dream she had chased through endless corridors of doubt, she moved. Before Giovanni's quiet assurance, the intruder's steely gaze, Ella reached into the pocket of her coat and pulled out the object given by Giovanni weeks before. A silver key inscribed with the art's true meaning, courage wrapped in potential. "You underestimate what art has taught me," she declared, her voice steady and clear, as she extended the key towards the intruder, a symbol and a challenge all at once. Surprised, the intruder hesitated, the moment stretching out like a canvas begging for the first stroke. Giovanni seized the pause, stepping forward to place a hand on her shoulder, grounding her in the gravity of shared destiny. With a nod that contained worlds, Giovanni reached into the silent depths of the armoire and retrieved the book once again, presenting it alongside Ella. In a low voice, he spoke words that carried the weight of their shared journey and the promise of resilience. "You have wisdom enough to alter perspective. Use it well." Ella nodded, the threads of their bond vivid yet delicate, and moved to stand shoulder to shoulder with Giovanni, facing the intruder together. A revelation alighted in the stranger's eyes, a shadowed recognition of the bond that outstripped mere allegiance, a kinship transcending circumstance. "Then show me," the intruder murmured finally, his voice a whisper among shadows, as tension unspooled into the air, their new alliance casting fresh roots into the foundation of Giovanni's empire. As the first notes of resolution whispered through the grand room, Ella understood the nature of their journey was more than Genesis. It was Genesis redefined. The revelation hung between them, sealed in the forge of newfound clarity where destiny awaited. "To endure," Giovanni remarked softly, "is the greatest art of all." Ella smiled, gesture shadowed by the past yet bold in its promise of futures unknown. And in the quiet aftermath, a forgotten object on the study's windowsill came into view, a rose, its petals edged with the gilded light of the new dawn, speaking of secrets yet to bloom.